Good afternoon, everyone. It has been an incredibly active spring storm season. If we take you back and where we stand for March, in fact, it was a record month, and we had 293 confirmed tornadoes. That was about 60 more than the all-time record back in March of 2022. But you take you down into the wind reports, we had over 2,000 and then another 600 or so hail reports. So that extended all the way from literally Texas up here into Minnesota, all the way up into New York. We even had a tornado confirmed there in California. And then the last week or so, it's also been an incredibly active start to April. Right now, we do have 107 confirmed tornadoes. Obviously, that was a massive outbreak that we just went through. So the storm, they're still doing the surveys, and that number will drastically be going up. But it has been very active, and we still have some storms we're dealing with this afternoon. In fact, that storm complex isn't over areas of Tallahassee, back into the Jacksonville region, up here to Columbia, back as well as into Charlotte, and it goes into Raleigh this afternoon. We do in fact have possibility of issuing a severe thunderstorm watch within this region, extending all the way down from Columbia, going into Lumberton, up here to Fayetteville, and that would include the Raleigh region. Some of these storms could be packing a punch, some 60, 65 mile per hour winds, and a brief tornado is certainly possible as we head into the afternoon time frame, as this atmosphere is still unstable as this continues to push off, and eventually will be out into the open waters of the Atlantic. But we've on the backside of there, we have had a pretty good cold blast for April standards. You can see the above average and below average temperature anomalies and kind of where we stand. I mean, most of the warmth is out west and most of the coolness is out east. So if you live essentially east of this line, you're definitely feeling the chillier air, especially this morning. But even the afternoon and to this weekend, it was definitely colder in a lot of spots, even further off to the south. But you're definitely going to be feeling that chill in the air for April standards, even for another couple of days or so. But the good thing as we head into tomorrow, that very active pattern finally starts to wind down. I mean, this is the severe weather outlook for tomorrow, and there's nothing, right? So that's first time we've seen something like that in about 2 weeks. So this is definitely going to be a welcome sight for what's to come as the pattern really starts to settle down and we start to get some much nicer weather. And one of the reasons for that is the overall jet stream. It continues to lift further off to the north. So now we have more of a kind of zonal and then transferred to more of a northwest flow. So you got the warmth coming in from the south, and then we got the northwest flow, so it shuts off the moisture supply coming from the south as well. So that spells a recipe for a little bit quieter pattern going forward, really for the rest of the week, which is going to be a definitely welcome sight. But what's not welcome is definitely the heat dome starting to rear its ugly head down there in Mexico, and that's only going to be lifting further north. So as the ridge starts to build out west, that means the temperatures go up big time, especially for areas, say, down there into the Phoenix region, where you're going to be experiencing your first triple digits of the season. And of course, that's only the beginning of things to come. I think last year you had 143 days. So you're going to be well on your way. You're going to start adding to those, triple digit heat, unfortunately, as the ridge will start to lift further to the north. And the only cooler air in town is going to be into portions of the Great Lakes, into the Ohio Valley, back into the Mid-Atlantic, because they are kind of hanging on to more of that northwest flow. Whenever you hear something like that, that's definitely a colder flow that comes out of Canada. So not terribly too unusual for this time of year, but a little bit extended as we head into April for, kind of this time of the year. You're kind of wanting it to warm up a little bit, but you're still going to be feeling the chill much of the week with the ridge. It will be kind of locked and loaded over a good part of the west. You've got triple digits returning for the desert southwest, but plenty of warmth coming in for a good part of the western states, and then plenty of coolness coming down for the eastern states. So it's just not a a 1 or a 2 day punch. It's kind of like all week long we've got that little bit of a cool down with that continued northwest flow, especially the furthest east you live. You're definitely going to be feeling it. And these are the average anomalies over that next 5-day period for your work week ahead to take you all the way through that April the 11th time frame. And here's your overall snow where it's going to unfold over the next 5 days. Most of it is going to be your Intermountain West snows. So everything as the jet stream kind of lifts further and further north, all that snow down there into New Mexico and the Panhandle and Colorado this past weekend, it will be a kind of a distant memory as you really start to warm up this week. And any snow that might be left that's going to fly over the next 5 days is going to be well north up there into the Great Lakes, getting into areas, Vermont, New Hampshire, especially into Maine. You definitely pick up some fairly decent snowfall totals. And there in southern Canada, back into the Quebec region, you could be picking up some decent snowfall totals as well. And the overall rain prospects, most of this and what you're seeing is going to be today with that squall line moving through as of right now. So we still got another, 6 to 8 hours to be dealing with that more significant rain. We do have a little bit more instability that's coming back for the weekend, but everything, more or less, most of the instability for the next 5 days is essentially going to be trapped over the Ohio Valley, much of the East Coast, into the Mid-Atlantic, and back into the Northeast. You got a kind of a drier period to come on the backside with those cooler anomalies for much of the central region, much of the desert Southwest, and really much of the Intermountain West. It's really just those coastal areas into Washington and Oregon that you're going to be feeling the effects of some of that kind of a cooler rain coming in off the coast. But for your weekend, you can see what we're looking at, right? So most of the orange here is dominating with that ridge of high pressure. That's more like your sinking air. It's next to impossible to kind of wring out any precipitation in that type of atmosphere. But where you see the air coming in from that northwest flow, where there's the 540 line, it's still got some cooler anomalies to be working with, pushing down from Canada, and it's going to be wringing out some rain with an area of low pressure that's going to be spinning up the eastern seaboard. So you should be getting some more or less kind of even a chillier rain even heading into this weekend for areas of Pennsylvania, New York, back into areas of New Jersey, as well as into Long Island, Massachusetts, Connecticut, up near towards the Cape. And then where you get to the higher elevations, we could be looking at more of a kind of a wetter snow unfolding across Vermont, New Hampshire, and back into Maine again. And then I think that just kind of continues as we head into that Sunday time frame. This is April the 13th coming up. The low pressure center kind of winds itself down and eventually spins out into the open waters of the Atlantic. And then anything else will be well north as well, as the more the polar jet comes alive and well. The southern jet is more or less dry. The polar jet is the more active jet. Still kind of hanging on to some of that cooler air, but it's going to be well north up into Idaho, Montana, and back into the Dakotas, heading into Canada. But where we stand as far as, the following week, right? So this is, of course, April. We had a very active time frame. We are going to be settling down for at least a week, possibly 10 days or so. But some of the longer range guidance already hints at a more favorable spot again, back in here into the southern plains, essentially areas of Texas and possibly Oklahoma and Kansas again. We could be looking at more severe weather possible in, like 10 to 12 days or so. So let's kind of look at this and taking a longer peek of maybe what's to come later on down the line. So if we look at this and head into the following week, this won't be until, say, the 18th time frame, but we do see a more of a significant system coming in off the west coast, and that really gets its act together across the Four Corners region. And by that time, we'll be tapping into more of a kind of a soupier air mass by then again, as the atmosphere will be really regenerating itself again, and these dew points surge well back into the 60s across Texas and Oklahoma and Kansas, back into Missouri, as well as into Illinois again. So we could be looking at a more favorable setup for severe weather, but it's not until 10 or 12 days from now. It's a long ways out, but unfortunately it may align towards your Easter weekend. Easter is late this year. It's not until around the 20th 21st time frame. So we do feel like it's going to be a little bit more unsettled, especially as these instability values are cranking at over 4,000. That's a lot of energy in the atmosphere tapping into more of a more active dry line by then. So a lot of the parameters are really starting to come together, as well as another decent cool front will be coming down the pike again, with another cool shot of air coming back into New Mexico, as well as into the Panhandle, as getting back into some of the same areas that actually got some snow. You probably won't be getting as much snow with this type of setup, of course, 10 days from now. But nonetheless, we do have a fairly decent, another, significant cool down on the way. But before that, we might be dealing with some severe storms again before that happens, and more unsettled like conditions. So right now we are going to be enjoying the respite of severe weather after we get done with the storms today off the eastern seaboard, and then it kind of quiets down for a good 7 to 10 days or so. But it is April. We're going into prime time severe weather season. So of course the second half of the season will likely start to ramp up again. And so your next favored time frame would likely be towards that 18th and 19th time frame of April. So guys, I appreciate you guys watching. Do like this video, definitely hit the subscribe button, and catch the next update while I protect you before and after the storm.